Okay. Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today. It is lovely to see so many people here, and I guess that kind of shows the level of interest and just how important this topic is. So this session is focusing on employability in a rural and remote setting. And I'm going to start with introductions. So I'm Jayne. I'm wearing two hats today, well, many hats today, but the two hats that I'm going to talk about just now. Firstly, it's my day job. So I am the membership manager at Social Enterprise Scotland, and previous to that, I ran the Employability Social Enterprise Network. So I guess that's where my interest in this particular area stems from. So for those that don't know, Social Enterprise Scotland is the representative body for social enterprises in Scotland. We're a membership organisation, and our role is to raise the profile of social enterprise, increase awareness and understanding of the model, ensure their expertise and contribution to Scotland being a better place is recognised and valued. We're here to represent members' interests, promote members, keep members informed, and I guess a significant part of our role is around connecting members and providing opportunities for networking and shared learning in a wide variety of ways, and this is one of those. My second hat today is that I sit on the executive group of the Third Sector Employability Forum, TSEF for short. So TSEF exists, it's been around for quite a long time now, I think, but it exists to facilitate dialogue between government, local government, third sector employability providers in Scotland, and to kind of connect and facilitate that knowledge sharing. TSEF aims to raise the voice and the profile of third sector employability providers and their contribution to employability outcomes in Scotland. And I guess really the overall arching aim is to just basically provide better employability services for the people seeking support. So this is going to be a pretty informal session today. I would ask if you could just keep yourselves on mute just whilst the speakers are talking, and then if you want to come in when we're in the kind of question and answer and discussion session, please just raise a hand. We will share speaker details after the session, along with any other follow-up information that comes out of the kind of discussions today. So the current Social Enterprise Action Plan recognises the unique importance of social enterprise to business and community life in rural Scotland, particularly in relation to Scotland's most vulnerable and fragile communities. The most recent Social Enterprise Census 2021 shows that 33% of social enterprises are located in rural Scotland. And I guess we all know on the call today that social enterprises and wider third sector organisations have deep roots within our remote and rural communities. Again, the census shows that whilst rural and remote communities contain 6% of the population, they contain 19% of Scotland's social enterprises. So both SES and TSEF are keen to shine a light on the work that social enterprises in the third sector do in supporting rural communities, delivering effective employability and important employment outcomes for people, to showcase best practice and to talk about what really works, whilst also focusing on those unique challenges that are experienced in a rural setting. So I am so delighted today that we're joined by three fantastic speakers representing social enterprises across that kind of rural, remote and island setting, to really bring this topic to life and to kind of showcase the much needed work that they do and the unique challenges that they face. So I am now going to stop talking and hand you over to the experts. First up, we're going to hear from Mark Timmins, who is the founder of Works Plus. They're based in the Borders. Mark, over to you.
Super, thank you. I've got 10 minutes, so I'm just starting my timer. Hello, everybody. We were given 6 questions, or 5 questions, I think. 6 questions, yes. I'm not going to give you a PowerPoint. I'm just going to go through the questions. So the first one is who we are. So Works Plus is an employability scheme, and this year, in actual fact, probably in about 2 days' time, we achieve our 5th birthday, which is very exciting. And over these 5 years, we've supported 250 unemployed and disadvantaged young people aged between 16 and 24, positive destinations of employment, long-term training, or returning to education. And as I like to say to people, sorry, excuse me, we're operating in the rurally isolated Scottish borders, which has a land area of 1/10 of the size of Scotland, with a population equivalent of Islington in London, which always challenges people. So what do we do? We work with the young people through 2 methods. The first is through groups of up to 12 young people who follow an 8-week course of confidence building community experiences with our extensive network of local partner organisations, which range from community projects, CICs, SKIOs, as well as big houses, landscape charities like the John Muir Trust. So in those 8 weeks, once the trust has been established within the group and with the staff team, it takes about four weeks out of the 8 weeks before the young people take off the coats that they've been wearing for the last 4 weeks, and they start to chat with each other. We move on to employability support. So that's CV building, cover letter writing, effective job search and applications, interview skills, both in person and digital. And that's an important one for us because, you know, as I said, 10th of the size of Scotland, digital interviews are becoming more and more important. All of this is supported by one-to-one person-centered support to achieve a success rate of 85% of the young people achieving a positive destination after 8 weeks. We then support the young people for 18 months to sustain their destinations and iron out bumps in the road, and so that they can come in and, you know, whenever they've got something that they don't know who else to talk to, they can come and talk to us. Come into the office, stick their feet on the desk, and say, "Give me a cup of tea so that I can talk to you about what we've been doing." And then we also, outside of the groups, work on a one-to-one basis with the young people who might be too anxious to join a group or out of cycle with the groups. So they receive the same support that the young people in the group do. So supporting all of that, young people receive money training from my bank. And so they get a qualification in a money qualification. And this is supported by one of our funders, first aid training, basic food hygiene, basic bike maintenance, and a graduation certificate. So these are, for some of our young people, are some of the, maybe the first qualifications that they've got in a long time. And then at the end of the 8 weeks, for the young people who are in the group and one-to-ones who are haven't been in the group, but they've completed their training and support, we have a graduation ceremony where we invite partners, parents, carers, community to celebrate the young people and their achievements. And it's probably, for some of the young people that we work with, it's the first time that people have sat down and recognized the achievements that they've made. And it's, you know, we get parents and carers coming back to us and saying, you know, the young people have started to re-engage with the families, and you can see the young people, they come up and collect their certificates and have their photograph taken, and it's a really joyous occasion. And any organization that is small like ours and can do that, I would recommend that. We also have in our remit a paid contract with Justice Social Work for Scottish Borders Council, where we provide one-to-one support for the clients, helping them build their CVs and sourcing a positive destination. And we are getting to the second year, just starting our second year. This employs 2 staff who are producing life-changing positive results for the clients. We also run a first aid arm, so this is about how we are a social enterprise as well as an employability project. So one of our staff is a first aid trainer, which means that every participant of Works Plus, whether young person, justice, social work client, is offered the opportunity to take their first aid, and we feel that this is constantly adding to the number of people in the Scottish Borders who have first aid skills and are able to grow their communities by providing that support. We also provide the service to other organisations and businesses on a commercial basis. And then our other sideline is that we make button badges for other charities and organisations, which involves the young people. So it shows young people that enterprise can be interesting. So the next question was, why are we unique? We're a small team of 6 staff. 2 of the managers are myself and my colleague Scott, who set up Works Plus after the demise of Tomorrow's People, and we were summarily thrown into a situation where we didn't know what we wanted to do, so we went to the job centre and signed on, and all the young people were going, "Can you help me with my CV, and can you help me with this?" And we thought to ourselves, right, let's see if we can do it. And with support from Inspiring Scotland for the first year, who supported us, you know, amazingly and totally, we got Works Plus off the ground. So being a small team of 6 staff, we're agile, we're not restricted to rigid processes and procedures, and we're able to respond to needs and opportunities. We're a person-centered organisation as a core value, and care for both the young people that we support and their individual aspirations, needs, wants and desires. Our team is 7 trustees, so we have more trustees than we have members of staff, have very strong business experience, which they are pleased to lend to the staff, and I think that has been really important to both not just our survival but also our growth. And we've recently welcomed our first young trustee to the board, and I think that that's a very exciting movement for us. We've also got a very supportive set of funders who recognise that we're effective in our support for young people, with an ongoing average of 85% success rate for young people to achieve positive destination after the 8-week block. We then support all the young people for 18 months, and we're thinking about removing that time restriction for the support. We still are in touch with young people that we have worked with 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago. So that's really important. And I think the support afterwards, because we've built up that trust, you know, they are very safe and secure in coming back to Works Plus when they have bumps in the road and need just a bit of support and a bit of help. So what changes we would like to see? There are going to be lots of things that we're going to discuss, I think, later. We would like to see some funding that's centrally provided but not restrictive. You know, we want to, because we're person-centered and we work with young people on an individual basis, we really don't want to work through the strictures of say the employability pipeline, because we know that young people may come to us and start at 1, and they do a bit of 4, and then they go back to a bit of 2 and a bit of 3, and it just doesn't fit the model. That our support for the young people doesn't fit that model. You know, we have daily and weekly meetings with the young people, whether they're in the group or on their own. Opportunities to network with similar organisations, and we're really pleased to be able to talk to everybody today. One of the things that we whoops, that's my 10 minutes. I'm nearly finished. One of the things that I think would be really good is to network with other similar organisations, and I think the other thing that we would like to see is councils and supporting premises, because what we find, we're really lucky because we work from a community centre who absolutely get what we're doing, but there are lots of organisations who are paying through the nose for accommodation so they can deliver their services. So that's Works Plus. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you, Jayne.
Thanks, Mark, and happy birthday to Works Plus. Yeah, I think the 85% positive destinations is fantastic, and I love that you've got that kind of long-term relationship with the people that you're supporting, and I think that kind of makes a difference regardless of where you're delivering employability, to be honest. Yeah, I'm gonna I'd now like to introduce Ailsa. Ailsa is the founder of Inspiralba on Argyll and Bute, and she also hosts the Rural Social Enterprise Hub as well, which is a fantastic resource for, I guess, any social enterprises working in a rural and remote environment. Ailsa, over to you.
Thanks, Jayne, and hopefully my power is going to hold out. I have some issues with power here today, but I'll do my best. I am going to use some slides primarily because it helps me as a prompt, so I'm just going to share these with you, if that's okay. Jayne, are you okay to let me share some slides? It
You
says,
should be able to, is it not?
It's host disabled participant screen sharing. Oh, it's fine. I can just talk through them if that's easier, so don't worry. Do you think that's going to work?
It's telling me that everyone can share the screen, which is clearly not what it's telling you.
Let me try one more time. Oh, no, now it seems it's okay.
Right.
Okay, great. Okay, wait a second, and I will just get this up. Okay. Oh, go. What's going on? Sorry, we're just coming. Okay. Can everyone see that okay? Is that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay? Right, great. So I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of our work in employability. We've provided support in the employability area of work since we started in 2009. And over the years, we've worked primarily in partnership. I think that's the only way to go in a rural context. So first of all, we've worked with Fine Homes Housing Association as a local RSL, and that's enabled us to secure resources through various schemes in the past, wider role, investing in communities to support wage-based placements, and wage-based placements with social enterprises and community-based organisations, because we recognise that kind of nurturing environment, which is really important, and provides that wider wraparound care while still providing a work experience in a real work setting. And that's primarily because we recognise that for many young people, reputational barriers are a real challenge. So in a rural context, you can have a great CV, you can do a fabulous interview, but everybody knows who you are, what your background is, who your family are, and that comes with a real amount of baggage. And that's why we find that providing placements with locally based organisations gives an opportunity to shine a really positive light on the skills and abilities that young people have. So because of that experience, we were able to work as a gateway organisation for Kickstart, and through that scheme, we supported 55 wage-based opportunities for young people across the area. Again, that involved quite a lot of logistics in terms of where the vacancies were, where the young people were, and trying to match up those skills needs in those particular areas. In some rural areas, there are real skill shortages, and in other areas there are real numbers of higher unemployment. So it's how you match those challenges, I think, is really important. And also recognising that whilst there are skill shortages, the matches of young people or older people and their skills might not necessarily fit into that. So it's how you work with people to kind of think more widely on the kind of opportunities that are available to them and how they might be able to tap into those. Because we've worked in the employability area of work, it became apparent working with a local employability partnership that pre-employability support was a real need. And we identified that, particularly as a response to COVID and the lockdowns, I think a number of people of all ages were facing additional barriers because of that extended time in isolation. And for some, particularly young people probably, not having that social engagement at really critical times of development was a real barrier for folks. So we developed the Spark Your Purpose programme as a response to that, and it's pre-employability support. We deliver that on behalf of the council and the local employability partnership with funding from the government. Through that programme, we work with a range of delivery partners, and I think that's crucially important. As you can see from our geography in Argyll, huge mainland area and a whole number of island communities. And it's really important that you have partners with a local footprint who understand the local connections, who understand what the opportunities might be locally, who know who to speak to and have some of those personal relationships, because that can make a huge difference when you're trying to encourage an employer to consider somebody that's perhaps had some barriers in the past. So we have delivery partners right across the area. Open Youth Cafe, Middlegill Youth Services, the Help Project, Centre 81, Find Futures and McTaggart Leisure over in Ailsa, and ourselves covering the whole geography of Argyll. And I think it's really important that we're able to respond to needs across that geography, because a young person in Mull or Ailsa should have the same opportunity as a young person in some of the bigger towns in the area. And those partnerships have been really critical for us to be able to hit the ground running and deliver those elements of support. And being able to hit the ground running has been really important, because the way that the funding tends to flow is there are big delays and there are gaps, and then it's all hands to the fore to kind of deliver within pretty challenging timescales, and then it all has to be done and dusted before year end, and then you face the same cycle again. So I think that's something that really needs to be looked at in terms of scope for multi-year funding, and the challenges that creates in terms of having gaps in provision. We've managed to avoid gaps because we've brought in reserves and other funding, but I think that kind of responding to need and having uncertainty and then having gaps in provision could be a real challenge for folks. I think that we also delivered support for over 25s through the Intermediate Labour Market Programme, and that was for folks that were over 25 and had been out of work for more than a year. And again, we looked at the stats for the area and thought, right, that should be completely doable, 28 placements, but it came around at a time when there was a real issue in terms of fuel poverty. There was additional payments that people were going to get if they were in benefits due to fuel poverty, and that real uncertainty for people around moving off of benefits in that context of household poverty being a real challenge meant that we had quite a number of placements that were a real struggle to fill. And we had folk who didn't feel confident about taking that next step, and completely understandable given the context as well. So again, that recognises why that pre-employability support is so crucially important, to work with people to look at the kind of range of options and to support them to consider their finances and how that might work moving into work as well. More recently, we've been working in the context of child poverty, and delivering the Parental Employability Support Fund. And again, that's recognising the real challenges for folks in terms of household poverty. So we have, again, a partnership established with Butte Advice Centre and with Ali Energy to look at how we maximise household income and also how we address fuel poverty for householders. And I think that's critically important, you know, in a rural context where fuel poverty is a real challenge. And that leads on to our kind of newest programme that's just coming on into the landscape at the moment, which is our household resilience advocate. So we have 10 posts that will be working with locally based organisations, and that's supported through Investment in Communities and UK Shared Prosperity Fund. And they will work with householders to address issues of household poverty, again bringing in that wider support through specialist organisations, but again having a footprint in local area to make a real difference. And in doing that work, they will gain a whole range of skills and experience and training that will then enable them to move on to longer term work. And I guess it's thinking about our context, that kind of access and progression routes is really important. So within our own work stream and working with other partners, we promote modern apprenticeships and graduate apprenticeships, enabling folk to move from employability into qualifications, and thinking about the whole range of barriers for example, further education for young people who may not be able to afford to go away to university, but can actually work within their local context. So just summarising then in terms of some of the challenges within the rural context, I think I've already mentioned reputational barriers and that need for being able to give young people that opportunity to demonstrate their skills and abilities. I think that we're able to provide placements with local organisations, which again provide a real reputational boost for folks. And we also work with local delivery partners who can provide that wraparound support in each locality, and who have good networks locally to speak to employers to provide that foot in the door where an individual might be challenged with that on their own. I think the mental health challenges have really come to the fore over the period when we did our kind of entry assessment with people coming onto our pre-employability support. Mental health issues came up for 65% of our participants, and that ability to create tailored, flexible, person-centred delivery. So instead of perhaps focusing on CVs and what job are you going to move into, actually helping individuals to deal with their mental health and think about, you know, how they might improve that. So, you know, we're able to be very flexible. So it might be some one-to-one counselling, it might be getting more active and involved in leisure activities, it might be getting somebody a reused bike to be able to get out and be more active in the outdoors, recognising those wider kind of health benefits whilst at the same time providing that ongoing coaching and support. And what we found that by doing that, our outcomes are significantly higher. So 65% of folk from our pre-employability activity, and that's folk that are most distanced from employment, have actually moved into positive destinations. And that's, I think, because we've focused on that wraparound support and that flexible, tailored support to meet the needs of the individual where they are, which then enables them to kind of develop and grow as a person and then move on to a positive destination. I think the challenges of year-on-year funding and the delays that we've seen over the past wee while make it really difficult to forward plan, to keep the momentum going, and to fulfil some of the obligations within really tight timescales. I mean, I think we've managed to do that within our partnership, and we're really grateful to our delivery partners who pull out the stops as well to help us meet those challenges. But you know, it is a real issue, particularly, you know, you build really good relationships with your partners in job centres, Skills Development Scotland, the schools, criminal justice service, and you don't want to be opening and closing programmes. So we've managed to sustain things by using some reserves and some other income generated while the kind of funding gaps have been there. But I think that's not necessarily sustainable in the long term. And I think our good working relationship with our local employability partnership has been key, because they've recognised the value in partnering with the third sector and our ability to work with our network right across Argyll to create those kind of nurturing supportive placements in terms of some of the wage-based support, but also in terms of that wraparound support for pre-employability as well. And they've enabled us to be flexible and person-centred, which I think has been a real success factor in the way that we deliver. Logistics, transport and access, as well as skill shortages and the difference between where people are at and where the opportunities are, you know, is that kind of trying to fit a square peg in a round hole scenario sometimes. And I think, again, it's through that wraparound support and then introducing some of those different ideas and contexts. You know, it might be somebody would never have thought about the care sector, but by having a short-term placement or doing a shorter course relating to that, it can really open their eyes to that environment, and bringing in other folk that have maybe got a bit of experience there that they look up to as well. And again, I think those place-based responses are really important, and having that footprint in the local area that can kind of provide the wraparound of support that's really necessary. So yeah, a number of challenges, but I think particularly within our sector, our ability to be responsive, to meet needs, to be innovative and kind of evolve and shape our delivery based on the need and that ever-changing need. You know, if you think about the impact of COVID, then post-COVID, support for young people, support for older people, and being able to do that within a context of really solid partnerships and trusted relationships, which I think is critical. So yeah, quite a lot to think about there. So I'm going to leave you thinking about that, and then I will hand on for the next person. So thanks.
Right, thanks very much, Ailsa. I mean, that was a pretty comprehensive presentation, and I imagine most people on this session would recognise some of the areas that you've highlighted. I mean, certainly for me, that pre-employability stuff is critical to kind of building a solid foundation for people's employability journey from then on. And it's often the bit that's missed, or certainly maybe not quite as much focus on it, and moving away from those more traditional employability type provisions, I think is going to be key going forward. So yeah, thanks very much, Ailsa. And our third speaker, who is on his second presentation of the day, is Kevin Morrison, who's CEO at Cothrom on South Uist. He's going to tell you about the work that they do supporting employability on the island. Kevin, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, thanks, Jayne. I'm going to have a word with you later about putting me after Mark and Ailsa, whose presentations were fantastic. So a hard act to follow, to be honest. My voice is going a little bit because, as Jayne says, I am on my second presentation of the day after a 5:30 flight back to the island. So apologies if I sound a bit croaky. So yeah, I'll follow the same sort of pattern as Mark did. I think I've not got a presentation with slides. I always think it's better to have conversations around the organisation. From my point of view, I'm not very good with slides. So first of all, Cothrom is an organisation that has been running for 30 years in South Uist in the Western Isles. Cothrom Development and Training Centre was the initial setting for the organisation, and it was started in the early 90s when a bunch of local new mums decided that they wanted to try and retrain to get back into employment once their children were old enough to go to preschool and nursery. Unfortunately, at the time, there was no options for preschool and nursery in the area, and there was no options for training. So Cothrom was born. Over the years, I think the organisation have developed to provide a holistic support for the community in a number of different ways, which I'll go through today. Our social enterprise arm of the organisation is Cothrom Restore, which is a recycling and upcycling centre, which we use to not only support the community in recycling and also purchasing second-hand materials and furniture, but also a base for our employability programmes and support we can give to the local community to develop skills within that building and that organisation. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little while. The 3 arms that we do have is Restore that I've mentioned. We also have our nursery provision and we have our adult learning department as well. So 3 separate arms of Cothrom, but very much working together to ensure that we're giving the best possible support around employment and employability for our local community. So what we do, a number of different things. What our ethos and kind of the main sort of tagline, I guess, for Cothrom is that we provide support, educational support and community support for all from 0 to 80 plus. We're open to supporting anybody and everybody that comes through our door on the number of different programs that we deliver. We kind of have a few separate parts of our employability strand. I think it was maybe Mark that mentioned earlier on about people feeling comfortable within the organisation. That's something that we're really focused in on, that when people come to us, it's very much learner-led. We have them meet with our adult learning coordinator, who then will point them in the right direction of what we believe is the areas that we can support them in. Some of the programs that we run our Access to Employment program, which is for people who are kind of at the furthest stage of being able to access the job market and employment. The guys work through that for a year. We've got a really high success rate of them then moving on to employment, whether that's part-time or full-time within the local area. We also run a number of adult learning classes and core skill classes around literacy, numeracy and IT, which is normally the stepping stone to then looking at whether we can provide qualifications around Scottish vocational qualifications or opportunities for modern apprenticeships. And what the reason why Cothrom works so well and probably what makes us unique is the fact that we've got our 3 different strands. They interact very closely together. So within Restore, for example, if somebody comes in to do a vocational qualification in business and admin, in retail, in joinery, in painting, in decorating, then we have the facility to be able to cope with some of the practical work on site. So that's kind of part of what we do. But like I said, we offer a holistic approach and a holistic support. So we offer loads of volunteering opportunities. We offer youth cafe projects. We've got a number of Gaelic focused educational opportunities as well for all ages. Our nursery is a completely Gaelic immersive nursery provision from 0 to 5. We're the only private nursery on Ireland at the moment. So that's some of it. In terms of our employability, we, as Ailsa mentioned in the last presentation, we have a number of partners that we liaise with and will support us either financially or with support with knowledge. We link really closely with the local council and the DYW team in particular in employability to try and support us with knowledge of kids coming out of school that we can then support within our organisation. They also support us through the No One Left Behind, the TSEF funding as well. We also have managed to access a number of funds nationally. So we've had a national lottery grant in the last 2 or 3 years for Improving Lives, which has supported us to run a number of community events and workshops. Again, allowing people a kind of easy access to Cothrom and allowing them to be able to come in without too much pressure on their kind of learning journey. I guess that kind of links into what Ailsa was saying about that pre-employability, is getting them in and understanding what we do offer and what we can offer within the organisation. We've also had support from the Robertson's Trust over the last couple of years with a tutor that supports people one-to-one or in small groups around the kind of employability skills that people may need even prior to doing the kind of CV writing and the form filling. We do a lot of work around, like I said before, coastal numeracy, communication, ICT. We offer people opportunities with driving theory. We work on support for CSCS cards around the construction industry. So I find it really hard to put in a nutshell what Cothrom is. There's so many different strands and areas that we feel that when people come into us, we can find a place for them. We do get an adult learning block grant from the local council, which we use for anybody who comes in kind of and self-repairs that maybe hasn't come through a previous programme or through DYW. We try to use that block grant to support them. And then where applicable, we use the No One Left Behind and TSEF and TSEF funding to try and support people in that way. It's a real juggling act, to be honest, to try and make sure that we are covering the costs of the work that we do. A real minefield in terms of figuring out where the gaps are and what we need to find provision for. But in UST in particular, and I'm sure this is across the other areas as well, is if we weren't doing the work that we do, who would be? The third sector, charitable organisations, social enterprises in particular are vital to UST, and we work in really close partnership with other third sector organisations on island. So I think Ailsa maybe mentioned about looking into the care market. We offer our SVQs and social services, children and young people. We've got social services and healthcare, which works towards the care kind of staffing. We've got hospitality SVQs, business administration, horticulture, which we work in partnership with UHI. They fund the Hebridean Gardeners project, and we staff that and run the SVQ over the year, as well as food and drink operations as well. So within that, the third sector partners that we have who are working within care, working within kind of horticulture, we provide the training services for them. We also provide the people for them as well. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but Cothrom is a place where, as I mentioned a couple of times, we give that holistic support. I think what's really important from our point of view, which stands us apart probably from the statutory bodies and agencies, is that when people come to us, they don't feel assessed. Whereas I think what happens when they go to statutory bodies is sometimes people feel assessed. We take them very much, like the other guys have said, on a person-centred approach. We make sure that everything we do is for the benefit of that person individually, not where we can fit them in, or we don't see them as a number, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So when they come to us, they feel very comfortable. We have a number of people who come and volunteer initially and then work their way into education programs. We actually don't really distinguish between our volunteers and learners, because we feel that when a volunteer comes in, they can be learning as well. So so that's kind of a little bit about Cothrom. I'm not going to speak for too long. I'm much better in conversation than I am in presentation, but I guess some of the things that we'd like to see change is very similar to what the guys have spoken about already. I don't know if any of you know about the repopulation programme that the Scottish Government are trying to focus on at the moment. So UST has been selected as one of the main pilot areas for repopulation. So some of the work that we are trying to do is we're trying to focus on what the needs are locally in terms of the job market, how we can fit in to make sure that the courses we're delivering and the support we're giving to people, whether it be on a mentoring basis or whether it be on a kind of qualification basis, is there. I sit on the Local Employability Partnership, the DYW board, and the Western Isles Development Trust, which gives us access, and it gives us an option and opportunities to feed in at a strategic level for some of the developments and the direction that these organisations are planning on going within the local authority in the local area. So I would like to see more of that. I think having representation on a higher level, on a national level, to make sure that third sector organisations, so which social enterprises, are thought about in the very beginning rather than an afterthought and a support when there's no other answer. So that's some things that I'd like to see change. Also, year-on-year funding is an absolute nightmare for rural communities, because obviously year-on-year we're losing really talented and qualified staff if we can't access that longer term funding. And as Mark and Ailsa both alluded to, the relationships that are built within third sector organisations and social enterprises is so important, because that's where you manage to get that information and able to then support people in a more meaningful way moving forward. Some of the other stuff that we're looking at around the kind of cost of living crisis at the moment is we're upping our youth cafe offer. We're trying to make sure that we're giving more opportunities for young people to get a hot meal and learn skills through our tutors at Youth Cafe. We've also accessed some funding from the NHS for a homelessness support and advocacy programme, which we've kicked off with a national partner for the Home Heating Fund from the Scottish Government. We use our Restore as a place where we've got a furniture hardship fund for anybody in crisis, that we're able to then deliver out furniture for free for people in that position. We've linked really closely with, like I say, the partnership side of things is so important. We've linked so closely with Western Isles Advocacy, as well as the local authorities, homeless workers, to make sure that we're triaging any support that we can give to people in the community, whether that be vouchers for electricity, food vouchers for the local co-op, or like I say, the furniture side of things that we've got within our organisation. So yeah, I guess I know I've jumped around a little bit. There's so much in my head, and actually following Mark and Ailsa just made my head go more and more skew with, because there are so many things that I would want to get out. But yeah, I think obviously funding is getting tighter. I think that being at the strategic level would support us to actually filter down funding to the third sector organisations in a more meaningful way, I feel. And this is, we've got really strong partnership with the local authority, but I do feel that they have so much of a grip on some of the central funding that we find it really hard to access that, and we can't plan. So any sort of thoughts and any sort of solutions to that would be really helpful. So yeah, thank you for listening. Sorry for babbling. Back over to Jayne.
Thanks, Kevin. That was wonderful babble. Thank you. I mean, it's astounding, I think, you know, the three organisations have just highlighted in so many different ways how they support not only employability, but way beyond that within the local communities. So I know this session is focusing on employability, but clearly the reach is way beyond that. And I think what's come through for me, you know, was when you said that people don't feel assessed. And I think that's kind of what makes a lot of social enterprises and third sector organisations really, really important, but really special, because they're nurturing, they're supportive, they deliver what the person needs and wants, rather than necessarily a more top-down approach, I think. So it's that, you know, they're rooted in their communities. So thank you very much for that, Kevin. I am going to open it up to questions for our speakers, or alternatively, if you want to come in and share your own work that you do, or your own experiences around employability in your own community. You are amongst friends here, so please do feel free to kind of raise your hand, virtual or real. We can bring you in, and it would be lovely to hear from some of you. Come on now, don't be shy. Amanda, how you doing?
How you doing? How you doing, Jayne? Yeah, just really, obviously, it was one of the delivery partners working with Ailsa, and that it has been, you know, when you're going to have a bespoke program and the flexibility, you know, to be able to have that ability to go to people and sit and have that and build up a relationship. Because, you know, as Ailsa was saying and the others, you know, a lot of the referrals, you know, are not in a state of this, I'm ready to go to work or ready to get a job, but from that position of being able to say, right, would be able to go into the gym or go swim, and getting that swim membership. I've also done a lot actually of stuff which has been, for me personally, has been amazing to be able to do, but with a girl in Dunoon called Inner Solace, who's been doing Reiki and lots of other forest bathing, the works, and it has had a transformational effect on some of my referrals, an absolute life changing, which they have then put in their exit interviews. And then it's about, them engaging more and volunteering, and it has just been such a joy to work on. It's just been such a great job. But obviously, to highlight the fact that what we've got and the partnership working that we're getting with Butte Advice Centre and Ali Energy and all that, and building all that up, how important it is to be able to keep that going. We've all worked so hard over this last year to get these programs working, building up these partnerships, and the thought of, oh dear, are we going to have to wait, I don't know, 6 months before we know what's happening? Is it going to carry on when there is such a momentum, and you can actually see the kind of, from my perspective on the ground, you see the results and just the positive impact it's having. So that was my point.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. That's lovely. I think that kind of, it's that non-traditional approach again, isn't it? And kind of thinking about what the person needs and what will benefit the person. Yeah, and transformational is a wonderful word. So thank you for that. Kevin, and then David. In you come. Oh, Kevin, I think you're still on mute.
Sorry, I lowered my hand and never went off mute. Yeah, I've got a question for the other organisations in different areas around the development of the young workforce and no one left behind funding. Mark's already mentioned something I think really important earlier on, is that he's meeting and engaging with people for a longer period of time than maybe some of the statutory bodies or the local authorities are looking to try and engage with people. I feel like over the last little while there's been a real pressure on some of the funding coming through only if the person gets a job. Not if the person is managing to boost their employability skills, maybe going in on placement, maybe going and finding volunteer opportunities because they're just not ready. I'm just interested to see what thoughts are from other areas on that, and whether that's something similar, because we're seeing people, like I say, that are so far from the job market that we can see an end for. But sometimes when you're trying to access no one left behind money or any money from the kind of local authority, they can't see that as a worthy person, not a worthy person, that's not fair, a worthy kind of support in terms of their no one left behind funding.
Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. I mean, I think the idea behind no one left behind was a movement away from that kind of outcomes-based payment where the outcome was a job. I guess with no one left behind being delivered locally across Scotland, different local authorities will take different approaches. David, I think if I'm right, you're from Highland Council. Do you want to tell us a bit about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, once I put mute off, yeah. Thank you. No, that's been interesting, Mark, Ailsa, and Kevin. That's been interesting this morning. I guess the question I had was around engaging with people who aren't coming forward, in a sense. It's the economically inactive, for example, is a very strong kind of theme that's out there, and we know how to access folk who are coming forward to services. But any kind of advice or strategies that folk are using that are working to engage with folk who in communities who aren't coming forward, I guess it's a wee bit like you mentioned the reputation thing there, Ailsa. There's probably a kind of a reticence to come forward, and I guess in very remote and rural communities that might be even stronger to come forward. So any ideas, strategies that folk have found that are working to engage with folk who aren't coming forward in a way that we can access them.
Great, thanks, David. Mark.
Yeah, so just in response to that question, currently Works Plus is running a women's group, and we're working with a local artist-based CIC for a group of women who are not economically active, but the draw is that they can come in and do some art, and by osmosis and chats over lunch, we are able to slowly engage them with employability, and utilizing the contacts that Works Plus has to help them move to the next stage, which might be volunteering. So currently we have 4 of the women out of a group of 8 are volunteering, and this is only week 2, and so we can see that is then going to lead to them trusting us as an organisation, and we're going to repeat that process. And we got a tiny bit of funding from the local council to do that.
Excellent, thanks for sharing that, Mark. Ailsa, then you, Kevin, and then we'll go to Becky, Heather, and Kevin. Try and keep me right on this. Ailsa, over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, it was really just to say, I think by taking that very person-centred approach, so we get a lot of referrals in from partners that we've got a good relationship with, whether that's local job centres, Skills Development Scotland, schools, so folk that would maybe not be that comfortable just coming forward on their own can be referred. And then I think we break down the barriers pretty quickly because of that person-centred approach. So instead of saying, right, you know, we're here to get you into work, it's more like, right, what can we do for you? Where are you at? What are the challenges you're facing? And what support can we put in place that'll help you address that? And I think by taking that approach, it then makes people more comfortable. And I think we hear back from people quite often that, you know, nobody's ever said that to us before. Nobody's ever asked us where we're at or what our challenges are, or is there anything specific that might help us, or taking that kind of approach. So I think because that is meeting people where they're at and then working with them on that journey, I think is the best approach. And that's what we've found. You know, it might not be an instant solution, it might take a bit more time, but by having involvement in a range of programmes, when it's the right time for that person, they can move on to perhaps a wage-based placement, or we work with partners that are looking at, you know, volunteer opportunities. And it's that kind of wraparound and partnership that keeps supporting folk on that journey, I think.
Great, thanks, Ailsa. Kevin,
Yeah.
Kevin, first of all.
Yeah, no, I would echo what Ailsa was saying there around the person-centred approach and the kind of soft approach. But that's sometimes only when they come through your door, and that's where the partnership side of things is so important. And the other thing I would mention though as well is, and I'm sure it's the same across the kind of rural communities, people can be quite proud and quite reticent to show weakness, whether that be in an educational side of things or a financial side of things. So some of the work that we've been doing, we accessed some of the funding for warm hubs, but what we were finding on Island is when it was called a warm hub, nobody was coming because they felt like, well, I don't want to be seen as if I'm just going there to get some food and keep myself. So we ran family fakeaway and cinema nights, just an activity where people could come and they could make food. So we're making pizzas and burgers and nothing too healthy, to be honest, but just a kind of treat night where people would come as a family, and then we'd set up our boardroom and one of our training rooms is 2 cinemas. And then what we did with that as well, we invited partners along. So we invited the local CAB, we invited the DYW workers, we invited the homeless support, the financial inclusion officers from the council, just to be there and to engage in the same activity. And then maybe when the kids were going to watch the film, they would engage in a conversation around, you know, what they do and how they support people. And I think breaking down the barriers between seeing somebody in a suit or seeing somebody as a, like I said earlier on, an assessor, to somebody who's just like you that just wants to try and help, that's made a big impact for us. We've had a number of our other agencies come back to us, and we've also had a number of people who have then come back to us to do some educational work on their core skills and the likes to try and improve their opportunities for jobs.
Brilliant, thank you, David. I hope that's given you some ideas. Excellent. Becky, have you got a question or an experience to share?
Mine's a question. I work on a program called Shaping Places for Wellbeing, which is looking at data-led approaches to exploring health inequalities in a set of different project towns across Scotland. And I'm based in, well, just outside Dunoon. And I was really I've spoken to a couple of people who are on the call in sort of separate conversations, but I was really interested in what the speakers and other people's views were in kind of the rural context about the data that's out there, what they find useful and what is missing. And I noticed that Martin has put in the chat something about for Shetland, a lot of the national measurements and data don't really reflect the true situation. I'm sure we're all kind of conscious of things like areas that don't appear in SIMD deciles that you would expect because they're small and things like that. But I was just, really interested in what sources of data people are finding useful for rural employability stats and what they need, and where there's, I guess, more scope for kind of linking up in partnership.
Right, thank you, Becky. That's a really interesting question, which I think could be a session in and of itself, to be honest. And maybe something, I mean, I don't know, does anyone want to come in on that in terms of where you go to for your data, how helpful the data is? Does it reflect the true, or what you see on the ground? Who was it from Shetland? Martin, do you want to say something about your comment? Are you about?
Hi, Jane. Yeah, no, thank you
Hi.
for having me along this morning. I think the reality is that we recognise that some of the national systems don't always reflect the pictures in our local communities, and I know that is what our senior officers and our elected representatives are trying to work nationally with national bodies and Scottish Government and other partners to be able to ensure that as we go forward, we reflect the realities here in the islands, but there is work for us to do locally, and I suppose we are already looking at research opportunities here in the islands to see around taking forward pieces of work to be able to demonstrate that and have an evidence base, I suppose, for presenting that forward to colleagues and partners at a national level. So I'm quite happy to speak through that and share that with colleagues. I've got a couple of key documents that I could pass on if anybody was interested in that, and I'll put my email in the chat function for anybody if they want to make contact.
Okay, thanks very much, Martin. I mean, if you want to send it through to me, I can send it around everyone that's sort of registered for the session today as well. I know Scottish Government have put a lot of resource and care into trying to develop frameworks to measure more accurately and reflect more accurately the kind of labour market situation across regions. But I guess this is where we get into kind of local authority areas, regions, micro regions, and what you see in one area of a local authority may not be the same in another area, and it becomes, I guess, quite complex, as these things tend to be. Any other comments? Anyone want to share anything on that, on the data side of things for Becky? Ailsa, hi.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think, again, through partnership, we're able to get some of the detail from, for example, Department of Work and Pensions or Skills Development Scotland, that can be quite up to date and show you particular age groups, for example. But I agree, the issue around some of the national, like SIMD, can be really challenging because it almost, it clearly doesn't recognise poverty in a rural context. But we find through those partnerships, we're able to get specific information.
Yeah. Skills Development Scotland do produce some fantastic information. I think Nina's on from SDS. I don't know whether she wants to come in and say anything, but I don't want to put you under pressure, Nina. Okay, I think it's Heather next from Whiston, is it? Heather, are you still there? Hello, hi. I think you'll need to unmute.
Yeah, sorry, I'm there. I'm actually really excited to have managed to stay here for the whole meeting because our internet being so great. So I'm not used to Zoom. I can't. It's very exciting. I don't know how to put a virtual handle. Anyway, I wanted to answer Kevin made a point about initial funding not being extended when you take a young person, and we're experiencing this very much. We've got a young person with a learning difference with us at the moment who came to us through Community Jobs Scotland and has really thrived, but we know he's not ready to go out into the world of work yet. He needs a different approach. And we've really had to battle to continue to fund him to keep him. He also lives in a very rurally isolated area, so the staff bring him to work, you know, and it's things like that, and we're happy to do that. But yeah, I heard from a funder just recently, the whole point of employability is to give them a job. But to be honest with you, here at Wiston Lodge, we foster young people and we get them ready for the world of work. And the places that we're allowed to fund are so small compared to the size of the facilities we have here, which is a 52-acre estate, but we've only got 18 staff. We're a not-for-profit charity, so we can't afford to keep them all. But the point is to get them to the point of being able to go out into the world of work and then have room for another one. So yeah, that's been a big barrier to us. So I really wanted to I recognise that. Another point, I was meeting somebody from a community council yesterday, and we were talking about the way it's quite difficult to get people to actually come in your doors. And it was noted that in the last 12 months, they've held so many different events to bring the community in the door and only got a handful of people. And by and large, the biggest turnout they had was when they got a fish and chip van there. So they sent flyers out to all the community to say free chips. And of course, none of us get like deliveries for takeaways and things. So that was, I know it's not healthy, but it was literally the biggest turnout they'd ever had, just a simple fish and chip van. So it's thinking outside of the box, I think, which is really good. So that was all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Heather. Glad you've managed to stay with us and master Zoom. And my vote would always be with fish and chips. So thanks for that. I think, was it Kevin Stewart had his hand up earlier? Kevin, do you still want to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. David, I just wanted to, I've lost you on the screen, but you were talking about looking at different strategies and how to connect with people. So I work with the Stove Network, and we're an arts-led development trust based in South West Scotland, and we work across a whole sector throughout the region, but we put creativity at the heart of everything that we do. And one of the things that we've learned over the last couple of years that we feel really works is to work in partnership, as Ailsa has been talking about, but particularly in partnership with community hubs that are based and embedded within the communities that they work with. So we partner with community hubs to put artists or creative people into those hubs to work with the communities and to work with them to find out actually how art or creativity can support things like employability, well-being, education, and actually to get really embedded within that community and understand what that community is actually wanting, what struggles they have, and how they feel they're represented at policy level. And actually what we try and do is work with them to help them change the perceptions of themselves, but also the perceptions that other people have of them, and how they can use the work that's being done with them to better effect. We've had some really great successes through a project we've run called What We Do Now, which worked with 5 rurally isolated towns in southwest Scotland, and each of them sort of within the sort of top 10% of the depravity index. And we placed 12 artists within these towns to work with communities in partnership with community hubs. And the success that we've seen with that is absolutely incredible. So a really quick example is in Sanker. We put in a couple of artists working with All the Arts, which is a community arts organisation within that town, working specifically with young people. And actually their approach was actually working with young people to inspire them to be involved and to inspire them that actually, you know, they didn't have to go down traditional routes of education. They didn't have to go to university. They didn't have to, you know, do what their parents told them they should be doing. What they've done is they've actually been able to experiment and be able to be inspired through creativity. And the success in that is that 3 of the 6 young people who engaged in that project have now chosen to go on to college in Dumfries and Galloway to study photography and have their work exhibited in galleries around the region. So that kind of different way of engaging with the communities has been really, really helpful for us as an organisation, and it's something that we are continuing to kind of progress with as the future kind of unfolds.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for sharing that, Kevin. I love that idea of, sort of however you engage with people, it's finding the right way for that person. So whether it's through creativity, whether it's through sport, whether it's through a fish and chip van, whether it's through a cinema night, whether it's from burgers, there's ways of reaching people, I guess, that potentially are seen as hard to reach, or traditionally seen as hard to reach. I'm very conscious of the time, and I know our session's just about to end, but we do have someone on the call, Susie Donkins, joining us from the Improvement Service. Susie, I'm not seeing you on my screen. I don't know if you're still there.
I am still here.
Oh, brilliant. I had asked Susie just to give us a very quick summary of the Improvement Service and her role within it, because I think she's potentially a good connection for us in terms of championing the third sector and social enterprise within the employability world. So if people do have a couple of minutes just to stay on, Susie, do you just want to say a little bit about you and your role, I guess?
Yeah, sure. I did have a couple of slides, but I'll send you them, you can share them. So hi, thanks for inviting me along, and I know we've kind of run out of time, and it was really good to hear all the amazing work that's going on across the country in relation to employability, and the fact that you are clearly all working to the no one left behind principles in offering that very holistic, person-centred employability support to anyone that needs it. And I've picked up on your points about multi-annual funding and about the reporting and outcomes and everything. And just to reassure you that that is definitely something that local government in general are kind of working with Scottish Government to review and trying to make it a bit more fair and equal. Anyway, I'm the Employability Partnership Manager, and I work across Scottish and local government to support the alignment and integration of no one left behind ambitions. So transforming employability support, tackling inequality, reducing child poverty. Although I'm funded by Scottish Government, I'm embedded in the Improvement Service. So the Improvement Service is the go-to organisation for local government improvement in Scotland. So I'm part of a wider team who support both local government teams and departments and elected members to understand their responsibilities, and in turn to support them to adapt their services for the times we live in. So, the cost of living crisis, everyone's there's been a call to arms, and we've all had to adapt and muck in and do whatever we can. So things like that. So within the Improvement Service, there are teams who focus on digital public services and data intelligence, as well as those in my team, which is the Transformation, Performance and Improvement team, who lead on specific project-based work. So that's things like change management, communications, economic development, child poverty, early years, and many, many other topics, including my role as Employability Partnership Manager. So working together across the teams, our big focus is on whole systems approach to tackling issues. So for employability and child poverty, that has meant working with a range of work streams to look at how we bring the leads from various council services who contribute to that bigger picture of tackling child poverty into a network with the intention of improving partnership working and collaboration across the work streams. So my 3 high-level priorities are to support better partnership working, supporting the development of no one left behind, and communications. A big part of my role is to help strengthen the relationships between all partners involved in employability, so Scottish and local government, Skills Development Scotland, the Job Centre, TSEF, Fair Start Scotland providers, the third and the private sector. So basically bringing together to work better together to deliver against the no one left behind ambitions. I've done a wee bit of work around breaking down the barriers and myths around commissioning and funding routes. And I've spoken at recent TSEF events about the plans for parental employability support funds. And I'm also planning future sessions to share information on the No One Left Behind products. So happy to share all of that. Some of you are probably aware of the No One Left Behind products which have been developed over the last couple of years. So service standards, customer charter, the shared measurement frameworks already been mentioned, service design and continuous improvement frameworks, toolkits, sorry. So through the use of these and through using local evidence and bringing together our local partners, we really are looking to transform the way employability services are delivered. Communication is a huge challenge. I'm sure you all get overwhelmed with the amount of information that comes in via email and social media, newsletters, bulletins, the likes, and you never know what's important, what needs to be actions, and what can just be put in the folder to be read later, i.e. the bin, sorry. So I'm very much trying to come up with ways to share and prioritise information, both between Scottish and local government, but also what goes out from local government to our partners and other key stakeholders. It's no mean feat. But I'm looking at using the Knowledge Hub to hold information on good practice, case studies, and allow the use of a message board for sharing info and seeking support. So I'm hoping that it'll be open to all employability providers. So watch this space for further information. I'll share everything through Jayne and through TSEF and whatever other routes that I can. So there you go. That's a whistle-stop tour of the improvement service and kind of my role within the No One Left Behind arena. I very much have got a background in local government, but I've also worked in the third sector as well. So it's kind of bringing all my skills together to be the mediator, no, sorry, the enabler between Scottish and local government and all other partners. I've been in post 9 months now and it's absolutely flown by. So always happy to come along and speak or to share information. I don't have a mailing list that you can join, I'm afraid. Everything that I send out would go out through the employability leads within the local authorities. But if you're involved in your local employability partnership, all that information should come down the line to you. Jayne, I hope that's okay. I hope that was what you were looking for.
That was brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Susie. I do appreciate you stepping up to kind of whiz us through that. I wanted to allow everyone who wanted to speak the chance to speak, but I also wanted to introduce you as well. So thank you. So I guess I think that probably finishes us up nicely today at this session. I want to say a huge thank you to our fantastic speakers today. I've been in social enterprise sector for 20 years now, nearly. And I never cease to be amazed by the just incredible work, the fantastic reach that social enterprises have. And I don't think that's ever been highlighted so well as the speakers today. So thank you very much. And thank you all for joining us. There will be a follow-up email that comes out after this session with speaker details, with presentations where we have them, with additional resources, and also potentially some suggestions for next steps. So please do come back to me with any questions or if you'd like to know anything more. And the recording will be available at some point on our, I think it's a YouTube channel we've got, and out through our bulletin. So yes, thanks everyone. Thanks again to the speakers. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.